Hello, welcome to this video. Welcome to a wrap-up. As you can see, our background's a little bit different this time. The weather is finally cooled down enough that I can sit outside and wear a sweater without burning up and sweating. It's supposed to rain, which is a little bit of a concern for the books that I have here that I read this month that we're going to be talking through. I'm going to sit here as long as I can and soak up the outdoors until I no longer can do that. Hopefully the sound's not too convoluted. I'm outside obviously, so the sounds kind of come and go, and I've noticed that the little microphone that I got, not the best quality. Dies, like not even dies, but just like it crackles so much that I might as well not be using it. So I am on the hunt for a better microphone. There's one with like a little puffy thing I noticed a lot of people using, so I'm gonna see if I can find that one somehow, somewhere. For now, we're gonna have to deal with the weather as it is. So I read, oh, not bad. I read 10 books across September and October. 2 of those were in September and then 8 of them were in October. So pretty good reading month in October, thank goodness, because it had been a while. Not much to report other than I think October finally saw the end of the reign of terror, which was my reading slump that just wouldn't go away. I have here 4 of the titles. I own 4 of the titles. The other ones were basically Libby reads through and through. This is kind of where we're starting. So we'll just go kind of in order. The books that I read in September, I remember slightly less, so I'm probably not going to be able to tell you too much about them. And then as we move forward, we're going to be able to get further into detail. Probably be able to give you guys more details about the books themselves, other than like my thoughts and stuff. The very first book that I read in September was One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar El-Akkad. I actually listened to this as an audiobook. The audiobook is read by the author himself. It's just an analysis of like how journalism approaches Middle Eastern, Muslim, Arab perception in media. My cat's staring at me kind of judgmentally. This was a really good read. I enjoyed it a lot. I will say I got the physical copy because eventually I need to go through and kind of note things. Listening to it as an audiobook I think lended itself to me not being able to obviously make notes and stuff as well as I would have otherwise. And also I wasn't able to highlight things that in the moment I remember being like, oh my god, or reacting to as I was listening to it. I didn't get the chance to like make notes in the way that I would have otherwise with this specific book. But it was very good. It was very well done. I loved the audiobook reading of it because you can really feel the author's emotions as he's describing the different experiences that he's had, the different scenes and stories that he's heard from people's real lives, and it was just a very great analysis of journalism, of what's going on in Palestine, of everything else. So that's that one. The next book that I read was We Do Not Part by Han Kang. I read this for book club last month. That was also an audiobook listen. I really enjoyed this one. I think something that I remember standing out to me as I was listening was the details with which the story was being laid out. Like there are a lot of moments, key moments in the story that just stayed in my mind and I still remember them. A lot of like snowy imagery, a lot of uncertainty about whether people are alive or dead. It almost feels like a ghost story of sorts because for a lot of the book you don't really know even if the narrator necessarily is all there or not, and there's different characters, both human and animal, that you aren't really certain like where they stand, what's going on with them until all the way to the end. And even at the end there were a lot of people who weren't sure if they thought that the main character or if the various characters and stuff were real or not. The best way I can put it without like being spoilery. The conversations that we had in book club for this one were really interesting, and in ranking them a lot of people actually ranked other books by her higher, but between the 2 that I've read, which is We Do Not Part and Human Acts, I think those are the only two I've read. Yeah, because The Vegetarian's also on my list. Between those two, I actually really liked We Do Not Part more, even though the story felt slower because of the magnifying glass effect that I felt like I had with the details and the imagery. I really enjoyed this one more than I did the other one. The formats that I read each of them was kind of different too, so I don't know if how much that lends to my experience, because I typically prefer reading things myself, but obviously like I'm not gonna knock audiobooks because I love reading audiobooks, but there is that difference there, so I don't know if that's part of the reason why I enjoyed this one more. But yeah, that was We Do Not Part. Not much to say because that was also the other book that I read in September, so my memory's kind of failing me a little bit. Then I read Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. This was like the first book I think I read in October, and kind of what really led to the end of my reading slump. I think I owe it to Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. I got this for my birthday very early on in the month, and I read it pretty quickly. I think I read it in less than 24 hours, or like about 2 days, because it is a very short book, but it was so nice. Like, it was unexpectedly really good. It's just like a very like fairy tale-esque story. Okay, if you can hear the planes, I kind of tried to wait out the sound as much as possible, but I am outside, so there's gonna be noise. Anyway, this broke me out of my reading slump. It is very fairy tale, like the main character can turn into a toad. So it's one of those like stories which is a fairy tale, but not the like flowery. It's like the earthy, like, I don't know, the I don't want to say dirty because I don't think it's dirty necessarily. It's more so like the earthy, like natural, naturey, like fairy tale that isn't like all flowers and rainbows and sunshine. It's like toads and overgrowths and like moss and big trees and whatever. If that makes sense. But yeah, this was really, really cute. I really enjoyed it. It's like a twist on the Princess in the Tower trope. Is it a trope? It's like a twist on that. So instead of the princess, you know what? I'm not gonna give you details. I really enjoyed this. It was so cute. I loved it. And it was so like atmospheric. So I think that's what really like jump started me into wanting to read it more and like just enjoying it so much. Then I listened to Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I think I've read like most of her books at this point. This one I really, really loved. It's very much, first of all, it's based in Houston, which I didn't know until I started listening, and then I was like, oh duh, because NASA is in Houston. And so that was a pleasant surprise. And I also just really loved the narration. Julia Whalen was one of the narrators, and then there was someone else, I don't remember her name. I'll write it down below if when I find it. But really enjoyed the audiobook. The story is so well done. I felt like it was so obvious that Taylor Jenkins Reid did her research when it came to like NASA and astronauts and like the whole process, to the extent that I was like, oh my god, like low-key being a NASA astronaut is so cool. Also, the main relationship in the story I thought was so well done and just like so beautiful. I think she just writes relationships so well, and yeah, I really enjoyed that one too. That was a really good book as well. No, it's really good. Recommend. You should listen to it. Reading it, I'm sure, is going to be fine too, but I really enjoyed the audiobook. Then I finally read The Arsonist City by Halalian. I have an entire reading vlog for that one, so I'm not going to talk about it beyond saying it was very well done. It was a little bit longer than necessary, I felt at times, but her writing is so very poetic and beautiful, and there were specific characters in this story that I think will live with me forever because their entire trajectory in the novel just really hit me very, very hard and deeply. She did a really beautiful job with this one, and I'm really hoping to pick up another one of her books soon. But yeah, because I made an entire reading vlog for this one, I'm not going to spend much time talking about it, but I'll link it somewhere in the corner, one of these corners. Then I read Restoration by Ave Barrera. This was another book for one of my book clubs. This was for the October pick. I personally really enjoyed this one. It is a very violent, difficult book to read. Like, I will say, it was quite shocking as I was reading it. I talked a little bit about it during one of my weekly vlogs as I was reading through it, in terms of like specifically things that happened. It was very, very gruesome in a way that I didn't expect, because it didn't have like any sort of like trigger warnings or anything like that. Obviously, that's not really standard practice, but I think that the concepts and the themes that it was really talking about, which is largely like patriarchy, feminism, the way that men enact harm towards women, and kind of how that can be restored, like how retribution kind of can be given. I think it did a really, really good job. I found it very compelling as a novel, and like just as what it was talking about and what it was trying to portray. Could we have done without the violence? I definitely think so. I definitely think you can kind of talk about those themes without having so much like gruesome detail and stuff. At the same time, I do think that sometimes when done right, and I think it was kind of done right in this one, it can add to the horror element of like what's going on, and it can act as like a physical symbol of that harm, because the abuse that women suffer at the hands of men, while that can be emotional, like it helps. And I say that like, I don't know how to explain it, but like it is interesting and adds to that horror and, you know, understanding of the harm that's being done when there is that like physical element there. A lot of people will say they wish there was like physical proof of the harm that they suffered, because emotional or mental abuse is not taken as seriously as physical. And so I think that's kind of the purpose that the violence serves in this novel. Even while certain female characters are dealing mostly with like emotional abuse, others are dealing with physical abuse, and kind of putting those two alongside each other really does a lot for emphasizing that regardless, it is causing a lot of significant harm. And so yeah, I think that that was like the main purpose, even though at times it was very, very hard to read. And rightfully, a lot of people at my book club said that they did not like the violence and they could have done without it. I do think that you should check for like content warnings before going into this one. Yeah. I don't know if you guys can tell, but the sun came out and I'm shaded, which is fine. But at the same time, I feel like I'm squinting. But I can't record this all over again, so if I squint, I'm sorry. Okay, the next book that I read was on my Kindle. Let me wake it up. I like that it's called Waking It Up. It's kind of cute. I read, where is it? I think I returned it already. Yeah, I returned it already. But anyway, I'm gonna hold this up. Just put a picture over it. But I read Katabasis. Okay. I read Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. Let me actually pull up my notes, because I think it does save your notes. Yeah, it does. Like, for sure it does. Where is my notes? My clippings. Okay, they're kind of tweaking. Okay, whatever. I spoke about this a little bit in my reading vlog, but not very much. I enjoyed Katabasis just by virtue of it being an R.F. Kuang novel, and I highly, highly respect and love R.F. Kuang's writing. I think that she's just very, very good at addressing a lot of different themes in her works. There's so many planes. I hope that is the last plane we'll deal with for a little bit. Making noise. A lot of noise is being made. Whatever. I think she does a really good job with addressing a lot of the different themes that she addresses, whether it's like issues with the publishing industry and tokenization of like minorities in yellowface, whether it's colonialism and academic elitism in Babel, to name a few. Many issues that we've read in many, many of her books. I will never be able to say so far for any of her books that I don't like them. Like, I do. I enjoy reading them to some extent, whether it's because it's silly goofy or whether it's because it's like really crazy like observation of whatever the heck is going on. I will say Katabasis, I think as of right now, is my least favorite of hers, The only book by her that I haven't read is the third book in the Poppy War trilogy. And honestly, I feel like I need to reread the Poppy trilogy anyway because I can't remember most of what happened. Oh my goodness, these planes. I really hope I can figure out a way to like reduce background noise, but we'll see. I felt like there were parts of Katabasis that weren't super developed in the way that I wanted / hoped they would be. I think that the romance especially did not hit for me at all. And after reading The Arsonist City, in which there are a couple characters in that book where they have very limited screen time with each other, and yet their relationship hits so well. After reading that one and then getting into Katabasis, I was a little bit disappointed all the more because I was like, we had the entire book to kind of fall in love with Alice and Peter's falling in love, and I didn't feel like that was accomplished. I actually didn't feel like I cared about them and their relationship. Without being spoilery, I will say that when certain things happened and threatened the relationship, as would happen in any book with any characters and most couples, it's usually just part of the process of them in any book. When things happened that kind of sabotaged their relationship or like put a strain on it or whatever, I genuinely did not care. I was like, all right, time to on to the next. It really did not bother me at all, and I was not like yearning for them to get to back together or to resolve it or for whatever. I just did not care. As individual characters, I liked them a lot. I cared for them and I really liked their backstories and just like their development throughout the novel. As a relationship, which like I just remember when it was being marketed, it was very much like emphasized that it's like, oh, Alice and Peter, like love story, whatever, alongside dark academia. It just didn't feel like that. And I think the other thing that I was thinking about was that Babel does a lot of a better job with Hell is a Campus, way better than Katabasis did. So it also kind of felt like a repeat of Babel, but less developed, like not as good, if that makes sense. I've heard a lot of people hate it, and I don't understand why people would hate it. I don't think it's hate worthy. I think it's actually pretty solid, even so. Like, Katabasis compared to a lot of books that are super popular is like way better. So I don't know what people are on about with that one, but it's just not my favorite RF Kwong, and that's okay. Not everything is gonna be everyone's favorite. Enjoyed it. It was good. Could have been better. Then I read Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. I listened to this as an audiobook. I love listening to cozy romanticises or romance novels. I love listening to them as audiobooks because I always feel like they hit more as audiobooks than not. I really loved this one. I loved the premise. I loved the characters. Like, oh my god, I will say at the beginning, I didn't know who was supposed to be with who. Like, I genuinely was like not sure if the love interest for her, who it was. And then as soon as I knew who I wanted it to be. And then as soon as it hit who it was, I was like it was so cute. It was so cute. That was the romantic like love story that I wanted and needed at the time. So that was very good, and I loved it, and it was so cute. It's very cute. Highly recommend. It's along the lines of like Irresistible. No, is it Irresistible? No. Secret Society of Irregular Witches. The other Sun Kumandana book, Magical Innkeeping. What are the other ones? Oh, and regrettably, I'm going to, I don't know, I'll throw them on the screen, but it's along those lines. So if you liked any of those books, you probably will like Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater, and I highly recommend it. It's such a cute novel, and the audiobook was very well done. So yes, read it. And then finally, I'm going to talk about these two books together because I read them one after the other, and they're in the same series, and I'm actually going to open my Kindle to show you that I'm literally, okay, this is so crazy, but I'm reading this one now, Heat of the Everflame, and the books that I read was Spark of the Everflame and Glow of the Everflame. Okay, So those are the two books that I read. Also, the last two books that I read in October. I actually finished Glow of the Everflame, I think on the 30th or the 31st, like literally in the last day. I think it was 30th at midnight, and then I immediately picked up Heat of the Everflame. So these are like, I thought they were YA, but they're new adult, and that makes sense because there is like explicit sexual encounters in the novel, and pretty early on in the first one. And there's like, you know, like grown up jokes and whatever between the characters. I liked Spark of the Everflame. Glow of the Everflame was suffering from second book syndrome, in my opinion. Like, it had its problems, especially in the middle. But the second book, at the last like 15, maybe 20%, got so good that I literally, like, okay, up until a certain point reading that one, I was just like, oh my god, like, let's get this over with. I literally told myself, I was like, honestly, I think once I'm done with this one, I'm just gonna leave the saga for a little bit, and then I'll come back to it later on, like if I don't have anything to read. I finished reading Glow of the Everflame and immediately needed to pick up the next one. That's why I'm 14% all the way through. It was so good at the ending. I liked it a lot. And it was weird because the certain events that like we were leading up to until the end of the book, I kept thinking to myself, like, why is this taking so incredibly long? Like, get to the point. Like, that I thought this was the point. Again, it suffered from like second book in the series syndrome, like it was, I think, is like a real thing, because I remember even with Red Queen, like Glass Sword was so bad even at that time when my tastes were a little bit less refined, but the ending did so well that I immediately picked up the third one, and I just started the third one, and so far 14% of the way in, I'm liking that one the most. But I have heard some rumblings about how it's like fallen short compared to the first and second, so I'm interested to see what happens. But that's where I'm at right now with that series and those two books, which I read both of them in October. I really enjoyed them. I think that October was like a very, very fun month. Just generally, I read a lot of enjoyable books that were also enjoyable books, thought-provoking books. Just generally, I had like a very good mix of things. So I'm very happy with kind of where I'm at with my reading. I'm really hoping that November is going to be a continuation of that. I think I'm gonna leave you guys here because planes keep flying, cars keep driving. I'm outside. It's very, very nice. It's actually such nice weather. Let's wait for that plane to pass. We're back. Temporarily. Those are all the books that I read in October and a couple that I read in September. Really good reading month last month. I'm very, very happy. Hoping that the momentum continues in November. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Let me know what you read last month. How many books did you manage to read last month? And I'm gonna go. Talk to you soon. Goodbye.